All right, so just as we talked about on Monday, I'm not here today, unfortunately, or fortunately for you. Hopefully, you guys all have Graphing Day 4 notes. So the pink sheet in front of you, that's where we're going to be doing this video, that pink sheet. I'm going to be asking questions like I usually do in class. Other than that, test is on Friday, test review tomorrow, and I'm going to be signing everything tomorrow. So today, nothing signed, but I am signing it tomorrow. Let me share my screen real quick, and we're gonna get started on today's notes. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. We're gonna get started on the notes. So hopefully right now what you're looking isn't anything new. This chart, we had it on Monday notes, Friday notes, and also Thursday notes of last week. So this chart is not new. You should have seen this, or hopefully you've seen this because you were paying attention. Otherwise, you probably haven't seen it. This multiplicity means, this little part right here, is not new. We saw it on Monday's notes and also on Friday's notes. So far, nothing new. The bottom part, this is where we get to things that are new. Today, what we're doing is writing equations for graphs. And I would say that today isn't uh, a bad day. I wouldn't say it's super easy. It's somewhere in the middle, I would say. So you might have questions, but we'll see tomorrow. Okay, so first thing you have to do is identify your zeros. So I know it doesn't ask you for your zeros, but you have to find them. So I'm gonna put Z for zeros. So Z means zeros. So next thing is, what are your zeros? So right here, what is this point? It is +1. So you put 1. What about this point? What is this point? It is 0. So you put down 0. And let me let it focus real quick. Okay, lastly, what is this point? It is -2. So I'm gonna write my equation right here on the right. So when you have your zeros, all you gotta do is go straight into f of x is equal to, and then you remember, always take the opposite of your zeros to write your parentheses. So what's the opposite of +1? -1. So you have x -1. What's the opposite of -2? +2. So you put x +2. And then whenever you have a 0, you could put x minus 0 in parentheses if you want. Or the way I'm going to do it, and I recommend you to do it, is just put an x by itself. All right. And yesterday you would be done right here. But unfortunately, you're not today. You see how they give us, or before that, actually. First, next thing you want to do is find out whether at that 0 it's going to be a cross or a bounce. Remember, yesterday when we said when it was a cross, we're always putting a 1. When it's a bounce, we always put a 2. So over here on this left one, does it at the 0, does it cross or does it bounce? It crosses. So we're going to put a 1. What about this middle one, the 0? Does it cross or does it bounce? It bounces. So we're going to put a 2. And what about this last one? Does it cross or does it bounce? It crosses. So we're going to put a 1. All right. So the next thing you're going to do is the following. So this one right here, this was the 0 of -2. Which 0 did that belong to? Did it belong, or which parentheses does it belong to? Does it belong to the left, the middle, or the right? It belongs to the left one. So since you have a 1 there, that's what you're going to put for your exponent. What about this 0? Which parentheses does it belong to? The left, the middle, or the right? It belongs to the right. So for the exponent, we're going to put a 2. And then lastly, This 0, which one does it belong to? Or which parenthesis does it belong to? The left, the middle, the right? All right, it should have been the left one. Actually, I just realized a mistake. So this one should have been left, and you do put a 1. For the first one, it belonged to the middle one, so that one should have a 1. So my bad. I do apologize for that mistake. We all make mistakes. All right. Now, the last thing we do, you see how you have this coordinate right here of -1, 4? The -1 is what you're going to be replacing the x with. Each x is going to get replaced with the -1. So we're replacing the x with -1. The 4 is what you're going to replace this f of x by, okay? So you'll have, when you replace it, 4 is equal to, what are we replacing the x with? -1. So -1 minus 1. And we have an x, so what are we replacing it with? -1, so -1 plus 2. And then you have a x, so we're putting a -1. All right, so over here, the 4 is always going to stay as a 4. But now over here, you have parentheses -1 minus 1. So what's -1 minus 1? -2. Now you have -1 plus 2. What's -1 plus 2? +1. And then lastly, you have -1 squared, or -1 times -1. So what's -1 times -1? +1. And now you're just going to multiply all those numbers out. So what's -2 times 1? -2 times another one, still -2. So we have that right here, -2. Now, once you get to this, you see how the numbers are not the same? Since they're not the same, what we're going to do is divide the right number on both sides. So we're going to divide this by -2 on both sides. This here is just going to cancel. And then what's 4 divided by -2? It's just going to be -2. And if you're not sure why, you could always play this in your calculator. It's going to give it to you in the calculator. So that -2, what we're going to do with this -2 is we're just going to put it in the front of this equation right here. And that right there is our answer. Nothing else. You don't have to do anything else. You're done. So hopefully we don't have any questions. I'm assuming if we do have any question, the confusion part is going to be right here. The 4 -2. There's another way you could see this to get the -2. So we had 4 equals -2. It's just what number are you going to multiply -2 to get a 4? And you have to multiply this by -2 to get a +4. So that's how you could get that same, what's it called? Same -2. Okay? I'd recommend doing this way, but if this way is easier for you, do it that way as well. Just whatever works for you. So I'll be writing this down. And then once you're done writing this down, we're going to move on to the second example. All right, I'm going to give you guys a couple more seconds, and then we'll move on to the second example. All right. Okay, we're going to move on to the second example now. So for the second example, first thing you do is identify your zeros. So I'm going to put Z for zeros. So Z just means zeros. Over here, what point, where's that point at? It's at -2. I mean, +2. +2. So you put down a +2. Now, what about this point? Where is that at? It is at 0. So you put down a 0. Lastly, where is this point at? It is at -2. All right. Once you're here, you are going to find whether it's a bounce or a cross. So at 0, the point of 2, is it a cross or is it a bounce? It is a bounce. So I'm going to put a 2. Now, what about this at 0? Is it a cross or a bounce? Cross. So I'm going to put a 1. Lastly, is this a cross or a bounce? It is a bounce. So I'm going to put a 2. All right. So when making your equation, right here I'm on the right, so f of x equals, you take the opposite of whatever the number is here. So what's the opposite of positive 2? Negative 2. So we're putting x minus 2. And then what's the opposite of negative 2? Positive 2. So you put x plus 2. And then since you have 0, you could have x minus 0 in parentheses if you want, if that makes it easier for you to see. But the way that I'm going to do it is just x. And now, this one is a negative 2. Which parentheses does it belong to? The first, the second, or the third? It belongs to the second one. So we're going to put, since it bounced, we're putting that 2 on the exponent. This middle, it belonged to which parentheses? The first, second, or third? Belong to the third. So we're going to put a 1 in the exponent. And then lastly, did this belong to the first, second, or third? Belong to the first one. So we're going to put a 2 for the exponent. And now you see how our point this time is actually negative 1, 3. So the negative 1 is what we're going to be replacing the x with. And the 3 is what we're going to put on the outside. So what are we going to put on the outside? 3. And then wherever there's x, we're going to replace it with negative 1. So we see an x right here. So I'm going to put a negative 1. Minus 2. Another x. So I'm going to put a negative 1. Plus 2. And then another x. So I'm going to put a negative 1. So now you just straight up just add. So what's negative 1 minus 2? Negative 3. Now what's negative 1 plus 2? 1. And then lastly, negative 1. Just leave it as negative 1. Now take care of the exponents. So what's negative 3 squared? Or what's negative 3 times negative 3? Positive 9. What's 1 squared or 1 times 1? 1. And then negative 1 stays as negative 1. So lastly, now what's 9 times 1? 9. Times negative 1? Negative 9. And when we're here, all we do is just divide the second number by on both sides. Negative 9 divided by negative 9 is going to stay. It's just going to cancel out. 3 divided by negative 9 is just going to be negative 1/3. And that's what we're going to put on the outside. All right. And this right here is your answer. Hopefully, you guys find it easy. Hopefully, Muhammad doesn't have any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to get a lot of questions on Thursday. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds to write that down. And then once you're done, just turn the page over to the backside. We'll just have the last 2 examples. I think the backside's easier than the front side, but that's my opinion. All right. Give you guys a couple more seconds. Okay, I'm going to move on to the backside. So on the backside, you have a question that looks like this. I know it has a lot of words. I know I said that this was easier. It is. Because look, all you care about, even though there's all these lines, care about only these last 3 lines right here. All you care about. So you're going to put, you just go straight into your equation. So your f of x is equal to, you have, it says 0 with multiplicity of 2. Don't worry about what this 2 means. That's all. Don't worry about this right now. All we worry about is this. So it's x equals 4. Remember, when we put parentheses, we put the opposite number. So what's the opposite of positive 4? Negative 4. So it's x minus 4. And now right here, you have x equals negative 2. So what's the opposite of negative 2? Positive 2. And then lastly, what's the opposite of positive 1? Negative 1. So you see how we said earlier that we had a multiplicity of 2 for x equals 4? All that means is that for each 0 here, it's going to have an exponent of 2. So this 4, which one did it belong to? Which parentheses? The first, second, or third? The first. So for the first, we're going to put an exponent of 2. And then for these ones, it's telling us to put an exponent of 1. So for negative 2, it belonged to which parentheses? The first, second, or third? Second. So we're going to put an exponent of 1. And then lastly, this one belongs to the first, second, or third parentheses. The third one, so we're going to put an exponent of 1. Now, similar to the last one, they gave us a point right here, 0.64. That point is what we're going to be plugging in. So over here, you're going to have negative 64 is what you put on the outside, and 0 is what you're replacing your x with, okay? 0. So we have an x right here, so what are we putting? 0 minus 4. We have an x here, so what are we putting? 0 plus 2. And then we have an x here, so we're putting a 0 minus 1. And now we just straight up just solve. So what's 0 minus 4? Negative 4. And then keep that 2 exponent. Now, what's 0 plus 2? 2. And lastly, what's 0 minus 1? Negative 1. And now you're just going to straight out just multiply from the left, right side. So, or actually not yet. I lied. There's an exponent too we have to do first. What's negative 4 squared, or negative 4 times negative 4? Positive 16. All right, now over here, what's 16 times 2? 32 times negative 1, negative 32. Now, these numbers are not the same. If they were the same, all we would put on the front would be a 1. But since they're not the same, we're going to be dividing by the right number on the right. So the number on the right is negative 32, so we divide both sides by negative 32. And you see how we have 2 negatives on the left? These ones on the right are going to cancel, but since you have 2 negatives, the negatives are just going to cancel to make a positive, and then 64 divided by 2 is just 2. So that's what you're going to put on the front of your equation up here, and that right there is your equation, and you're done. And that's it. So hopefully you guys find this one easier. Hopefully Muhammad doesn't have any more questions, or doesn't have any at all. All right, so I'm gonna give you guys just a couple seconds and move on to the second and last example for today. And other than that, we'll have the worksheet for today, which I will sign tomorrow, and then test on Friday. So hopefully we do good on this test. We do better than we did on the first one. And I'm pretty sure this right here would be, I want to say, a level 4 question. Or maybe I lied. No, yeah, this is a level 4 question, I believe. So I feel like this is the easiest question that everybody should be getting on the test. So just a heads up, this is going to be on the test as a level 4. All right, can I move on to the last one? All right, I'm gonna move on. I'm moving on. So for the last one, again, a lot of words. All we care about is the last 3 lines. These lines right here is all we care about. So you have zeros of multiplicity of 2 at x equals negative 3. So remember, you go f of x, and then you take the opposite of the number. So what's the opposite of negative 3? Positive 3. So it's x plus 3. And then what's the opposite of 5? Positive. What's the opposite of positive 5? Negative 5. So you put x minus 5. What's the opposite of negative 1? Positive 1. So you put x plus 1. And now you see how it says you have a multiplicity of 2 for x equals negative 3. So which parentheses does the negative 3 belong to? The first, second, or third? The first one. So for the first one, we're going to put an exponent of 2. Now, you have a 0 of 1, multiplicity of 1. So which parentheses am I going to put it to? The first, second, or third? Second. And then you have, again, multiplicity of 1. So which does the negative 1 belong to? The first, second, or third? The third. So I'm going to put a 1. And now, lastly, what we're going to do is just replace our x with 0 and put negative 90 on the left. So what am I putting on the left? Negative 90. And then what am I replacing my x with? 0. So I have a 0 right here. I have an x right here, so I'm going to put a 0 plus 3. I have an x again, so I put a 0 minus 5. And then again, I have an x, so I put a 0 plus 1. Now, you have negative 90. Now, what's 0 plus 3? 3. Now, what's 0 minus 5? Negative 5. And then lastly, what's 0 plus 1? It's 1. And now what you're going to do is first find out what this 3 squared is. So what's 3 squared, or 3 times 3? 9. The negative 5 stays a negative 5, and the 1 stays as 1. Now, over here, leave this as negative 90. What's 9 times negative 5? Negative 45 times 1, still negative 45. Now, what do I need to multiply? Or now what I need to do is divide both sides by this number, which is negative 45. So when you divide by negative 45 on both sides, this right side is just going to cancel. You see how we have 2 negatives on the left? So those are going to turn into positive. And then what's 90 divided by 45? That's just 2. So on the front of our equation up here, we're putting a 2. And that is it. And we are done. And that's all for today's notes. So all you have to do for today now is just the worksheet. And then again, you're not gonna get that signed today. You'll get it signed tomorrow. If you don't have a stamp sheet or yesterday's work, you'll get it from me tomorrow. Tomorrow is a test review, and then we have a test on Friday. And again, I think this test is the easiest one to get a high score on. So hopefully we all get high scores on this. And then hopefully everybody understood what we had today. Hopefully we don't have any questions. Hopefully Mohammed doesn't have any questions. And we are good. All right. So that is all for me today. Hopefully I don't get no bad sub report, because I know we have some bad kids in here who like to play too much. So hopefully I don't get told anything bad. I'll see you all on Thursday tomorrow. Other than that, that is it. Have a good day, and hopefully we're all good.